Al McFarlane. Welcome to the conversation with Al McFarlane. I'm glad to be here and glad to have you along as well. Today is Monday, July 10th, 2023. Great program scheduled for you. A couple of good conversations. I'll be talking with a new friend. He'll be my friend when we're done talking for sure. And that's Scott Davis. He's an author of a book we'll talk about, but an adventurer, entrepreneur, an inventor, and a seeker, I think. We'll learn more about that in that conversation in just a minute or two. And of course, my colleague and friend, Leah, Coach Leah, is here. We'll talk about her work, her successes already in launching her new podcast and the program that we are hosting and producing with her. Before I get going, I want to invite you to support this program. So thank you for supporting it. First of all, here, wherever you are, if you're checking us out on any of the YouTube platforms or the Facebook platforms or on Twitter or on LinkedIn, send us a note in the comment section. Tell us your name and where you're joining from. And if you've got a question or comment, drop it there. We want to hear from you. But we want you to support this work by going to our YouTube channel, not now, later on, and becoming a subscriber. YouTube, Insight News MN, Insight News Minnesota, and subscribe, like, and share. We've got around 300, 400 subscribers now. We want 1,000, and we'd like for you to be one of those. We want you to bring 10 friends so that we can bring this program to a level that we can monetize it and grow it in the process. We want to also, as always, thank our friends over at the Minnesota Department of Health. They've got a community vaccine event coming up on Saturday, July 15th from 10 to 4 over at the Amherst H. Wilder building at 451 Lexington Parkway North in St. Paul. And we want to just keep reminding all of us to pay attention to the protocols that we've learned over the COVID pandemic and how to be safe and to be proactive and preventive. Keep those protocols in mind. Also, trust the vaccines, get vaccinated. Well, let me begin, as I often do, with what we call the hot topics, and we've got a couple of them there. And these I want to just share with you parts of stories that are running in our newspaper. And if you have something to say about them, to comment on them, we want you to do just that. The first one is an article that's by our colleague at the National Newspaper Publishers Association, Lauren Victoria Burke. She's an NNPA Newswire contributor. And this article is called After Anticipated Affirmative Action Ruling, Black Leaders Speak Out. And she writes that after the Supreme Court did what many have long expected, and that is to strike down race-based admissions to colleges, Black leaders held emergency press conferences and strategy calls, one convened by Mark Morrell on June 29th, hours after the Supreme Court decision, yielded some very sharp commentary. Affirmative action refers to a set of policies and practices aimed at promoting equal opportunities for historically disadvantaged groups, particularly in relation to employment or education. And the purpose of affirmative action, Lauren writes, is to address the historical and ongoing systemic discrimination and underrepresentation that has been faced throughout history. Women, racial minorities, ethnic minorities, individuals with disabilities have been beneficiaries. Typically, affirmative action involves taking proactive steps to increase the representation of these underrepresented groups in areas where they have been historically excluded or marginalized. Well, here's the problem. A 6-3 ruling by the U.S. Supreme Court will alter college admission policies. Chief Justice John G. Roberts Jr. wrote an opinion for the majority saying that programs unavoidably employ race in a negative manner and that they involve racial stereotyping in violation of the Constitution. So the ruling affirmed that race-conscious admissions programs at Harvard and University of North Carolina are unconstitutional. Well, there was dissenting, but you should read the article. It's interesting. Tell me what you think. Make a comment. Then the second one is kind of in the same vein. It's an article, it's an issue that we're with all the time. It's an article by Philip Ewell, who's a professor of music theory at Hunter College. It's an article published, I think, July 8th. And it says the U.S. music education U.S. music education has a long history of anti-Blackness, and that is finally being confronted. So Professor Ewell writes that when it comes to achieving racial diversity, music education at the university level in the U.S. still has a long way to go. And he says one of the leading professional organizations, which is called the Society for Music Theory, put it bluntly in 2020, open quote, "We humbly acknowledge that we have much work to do to dismantle the whiteness and systemic racism that deeply shape our discipline." That's what they wrote. The focus is on white male Europeans in textbooks and music selected for study has been called into question by countless scholars and practitioners because of music education's deep root in anti-Blackness. In recent years, the simplest solution for music professors has been to find non-white classical composers and use their work on a program or concert to demonstrate the school's commitment to diversity. One person whose work some professors have used in such a way is Florence Price. She's a composer, music teacher who died in 1953, considered one of the best black female musicians with mainstream appeal. But the last paragraph I'll share is that he says, in my view, as only one of a few black scholars in the field of music theory, such diversity efforts often serve only to reinforce the whiteness and the maleness of the system. Let me know what you think. And so I think it's a good conversation. It's one worth having. Love to have your point of view on this. Well, let me then now go to my main topic today, and that is my conversation with my guest for the first part of the program. And my guest is an adventurer, Scott Davis. He's a tech founder, he's an author, and he's captivating audiences with his unconventional approach to finding balance, and beauty, and meaning in life. He's got a thought-provoking book called Surf the Seesaw, Unconventional Essays on Balance, Beauty, and Meaning in Life. And Scott, welcome to the conversation with Al McFarlane. How you doing, my friend?
I'm doing great, Al. I really appreciate being here.
Well, I appreciate you taking time. When I saw the press release about your book, I sent my people a note saying, let's create a conversation. I'm curious as to what he's talking about. And here I am with a chance to ask you face-to-face in electronic person, I guess the right word for it is. Tell me, number one, beauty, balance, meaning in life. What does that mean?
Well, I think that we have some pretty severe misunderstandings about what those terms mean, and we need to unlearn a lot of the baggage that we've accumulated living in society in Western society for a long time. So in my case, being a headstrong, adventurous kind of guy, at one point I just decided, you know what, I'm going to sell everything I own. I sold my houses, I sold my cars, I gave away the keys to my companies, and I bought a radial sailboat and sailed off to live in some simpler cultures in the Southeastern Caribbean for 6 years. And those people taught me a tremendous amount. And the first thing they did was they just stripped away a lot of the sort of false understandings, false assumptions that we take as being true. It's been a remarkable experience, and the book is really just a way of me sharing those stories and the formative impact they had, and showing me that, you know what, beauty looks different than we think it does, and balance is certainly different than we are taught that it is. And the meaning of life, it can happen for every single person. It's not about fame, it's not about power, and it's not about money.
I'm going to ask you to go deep on beauty. What is beauty? How it appears to you. Then I'll ask you to talk about balance, what that means, what your discovery has been about the nature of balance, what it means, why it's important or not important, and then to broadly go into this idea of how we see things, point of view, perspective, and how maybe more than one perspective can exist at the same place at the same time, and how we navigate that. How does humanity navigate its ability to engage from the uniqueness of every position, but the truth of each existence, and do it in a way that does not destroy, demean, or devalue any of the participants, those that are alive and those that are existing as minerals, as water, as sentient or non-sentient. So that's a lot to get into. But first of all,
Wow.
Scott
All
Davis,
right.
tell your story, where you're from, and
Cool.
talk about becoming the person that you changed at 40. How did 40 begin for you?
Yeah. Well, raised in the South, first child of three. My parents are still together, super strong family life. My father is literally my hero. There's a chapter in the book on that. He's a flawed hero, but he's my hero and just the greatest man I've ever known. And I've known some really great ones. Public schooled, had a pretty amazing career, just met some people and they kind of launched me, and I was able to do a lot of things before I was 40. And that let me see, where this was headed and realize, having more is not really going to make me any happier if it's the wrong kind of more. And so, that's really where I come from. I have two kids, 32 and 30. One is a quantum scientist. The other is a creative director at a video game company. So I have the artist and the scientist, and Thanksgivings are pretty awesome around our house. So that's me in a nutshell. I'm just basically
where in the South are you from? Talk about the
Texas.
South.
Texas.
Okay,
Yeah.
and you said you've got a great dad, a flawed man. Talk about your dad. In fact, talk about your dad's dad and your dad's dad's dad. Talk about your lineage. What flowed into the person I'm talking to now, Scott Davis?
Well, my dad's dad was dirt poor. I mean, literally dirt floors, kind of dirt poor. His father died when he was in 9th grade, and he was the oldest child, and he quit school and did manual labor for the rest of his life, taking care of his birth family, and then ultimately getting married and taking care of my father's family. My father was taught by this man that you basically need to be disciplined. You need to take care of yourself. You need to keep your nose clean. You need to do the right thing. You need to be as good as your word. And ultimately, my dad got this incredible break where he got a scholarship to get out of this very small town and go to a university. And, that kind of set us aside from that. That those kind of communities can be kind of like a vortex. They can hold you in. And
what town was that? What town?
That was Jonesboro, Louisiana.
Jonesboro. Okay.
Northern Louisiana. And so Dad got out, got through university, served in the U.S. Air Force during Vietnam, and then went on and was a businessman in the energy sector in Houston for the rest of his career. And that's the story of his life, is basically just being a good man over and over and over again for 50 or 60 years. And that's why I think he's a great man. It wasn't like he set out to say, look, all these sacrifices I'm going to make to be great. He just said, every single day, I'm going to get up and I'm going to do the good thing every single day. And when I remember when I was a kid, he was working like mad. I don't know, 60, 70, 80 hours a week consistently, had a 2-hour each way commute. And I remember Saturday mornings, I wanted to go play, and I needed him because, I needed him to drive the boat so I could ski, because that's that way, right? So he's just been slaving away all week long, and I go in on his day off and wake him up at 5:30, and he doesn't even say anything. He just gets out of bed, gets on and go. And that's just the greatest story. I mean, because that's who he was. Anytime anybody needed anything from him, well, he was there, he was paying attention, and he was willing. And he was just a great man.
So where'd you go to school?
Undergrad Baylor, grad school at Vanderbilt.
What about your college life? What kind of growing did you do while you were at university? Who were you when you walked on campus the first time? Who were you when you left?
Well, when I walked onto campus, the first time, I was a child of, let's just say, affluent, evangelical Christian family in the South. And so I had a lot of really narrow-minded views about a whole lot of things.
Like what?
Well, there were 3 non-whites in my public school. Mm-hmm. So 650 kids, I had 3 non-whites. I had never been around anybody who was gay. I had never been around anybody who was an avowed atheist.
Mm-hmm.
I'd never been around anybody who had a different ethical framework. And so, university was for me being dropped into this diversity of ideas, diversity of everything, diversity of priorities, of values, of skin color, of affluence, of everything. And it was very tense for me, between me and my parents, because I'm experiencing something that they've never experienced. And it's not that they were bad people. It's just that they had very narrow experience. Right.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think that that's, to me, in the book, I talk about how diversity is our species' superpower. And I think that it's not, people see it as this, it's like a tug of war or a tension, and it's all negative and it's zero-sum game. And my experience hadn't been that. My experience has been, holy smoke, man, look at all these different ways to do that thing. Yeah. Whatever that thing is, that thing could be cornbread, it could be ribs, it could be basketball, it could be, ethics, it could be anything. There's so many ways to do that. And if I just keep running around with the same people who went to the same school and read the same books as me, my view of the world is going to be very, very narrow. So that was my college experience. Was, it was classic, exploratory. Holy smoke, this is what it means to be gay. This is what it means to be poor. This is what it means to be an artist. This is what it means to be from a mixed family. Just a learning experience.
And so when you came out and as you set into your career, where were you? Who were you? Because you still weren't who you are now.
No. Well, I got married really early. And we had kids early. I had 2 kids by the time I was, in my 26, 27 years old. I already had 2 kids running around. And so my life for I'll call it the first half, was really defined as all the necessities. I got to feed them. I got to take care of them. I need to teach them. I need to be present for them. And so there was not a lot of time for what do I want and who am I? And so that whole process of thinking about, well, what is the meaning of life and why am I here? That stuff just got postponed until, the kids were older, because it was really just, honestly, it was the tyranny of the urgent. I need to get them fed. I need to get them to school. I need to make sure that they learn. I need to make sure they feel safe. And it was just that for 20 years.
Okay. And while you're doing that, that was through your profession, through your work? What was your work? What did you do?
So, I'm trained as a decision scientist. So it's basically a branch of computer science, economics, and mathematics. How do you structure decisions so that you can make a good one? And so I did that over and over again, a lot of different contexts. I did it for American Airlines. I did it for other large corporations. And then I also set up my own companies, including a tech company that I created in '99 to build software tools to do that for companies. And so, that's really what the success of that company is, what made all the rest of this stuff possible, honestly.
So tell me about that company. What kind of success did you experience? And were you surprised? Did it happen the way you expected it to happen or differently? What does success mean?
That's a really good one.
You were doing a lot of stuff, it sounds like.
Yeah.
In a lot of places, right?
So the first thing I would say is that success doesn't look like things are going according to plan. Because our original business plan was wrong about 90% of the stuff that happened. And so yet we look at it and say, our employees were able to have amazing careers. They were able to learn. They were able to make a lot of money. They were able to go on beyond us and get great jobs and have a lot of success. And so we're super proud about our alumni that they've gone on all over the place, whether it's EMC or Oracle or a whole host of, brand name companies, and that they've thrived. So, success is defined a lot of different ways. It's defined as, respecting your employees and allowing them to have a life where they don't need to worry about, are they going to get fired if they need to take a few days off or a few weeks off? When I needed to take some time off after 20 years, my business partner just said, you know what, you need to be gone for more than a couple of weeks. You need to be gone for several months. Just get lost. And, partners don't say that.
Right.
Partners normally are about, you need to pull your weight and everything. But
Yep.
I'd say creating a culture in which people took care of each other, I'd call that success.
Okay, so when you reach that point, so how many businesses did you have?
Well, I have a tech business. It's called Iris. I also, when I came back from the Caribbean, I created a business to help people build their own sailboats. That's called Pure Sailboats. I have another business in which I incubate other consulting ideas, and that's called Azure Innovation Services. Right now, we're working on a affordable housing nonprofit venture, sort of a social entrepreneurship. I do a lot of things.
Okay, so you're still doing it. I mean, you didn't walk away from the business world. You just stopped doing what you're doing. And
I basically handed the keys off to everything and went away for 6 years. And when I came back, things really hadn't changed very much. And so I just kind of picked up some of the pieces and started doing it all over again.
Got it. So the 6-year hiatus, where did you go? How did you decide? Number one, you're a sailing guy, right? Talk about sailing and what sailing has meant to your life and how sailing led to the epiphanies that we're really going to talk about right now.
Sailing is amazing. One of the things about sailing that you realize is that you are completely at the mercy of Mother Nature, and you can do stupid things, but you cannot get away from Mother Nature. Mm-hmm. You can do smart things, but you cannot get away from Mother Nature. And so one of the best examples of that, I think, for me, was just this idea of balance. So with a sailboat, there's the wind, there's the keel, there's the waves, there's the rudder, there's the crew. There's so many forces, and the boat is just constantly moving. And so what we talk about as a sailor, we want to put the boat in a groove. And in a groove, what's happening is that the boat is pulsing, and it's not just going straight. It's just in an efficient groove where all of these forces are kind of moving back and forth with each other efficiently. And so that was one of the epiphanies, was to realize that balance is active, because we tend to talk about balance, especially as adults, we talk about balance as if it's static, right? Mm-hmm. You have this much power, I have this much power, and we hold this thing firmly, rigidly together. But on a sailboat, that's just toxic. That does not work. Okay. Mm-hmm. And so we started to think about it more as like, remember when you were on the playground and there was a seesaw? Mm-hmm. I used to stand in the middle and put one foot on each side of the seesaw, and I'm just kind of floating the chair, floating the ends, right? And it's active and it never stops, but that's balancing, right? And you think like, we would balance a broomstick on your hand, and you're just kind of like, ooh, okay, balance on your bike without training wheels. So kids, we know balance is active and it's perpetual, right? But then as adults, we start thinking, oh, it's an equilibrium. It's like a negotiated settlement.
It's either or sometimes, and it never really is.
It isn't, right? So, I mean, if I take cinder blocks and I put them under one side of the seesaw, all that does is ruin the seesaw.
Yeah. You no longer have a seesaw.
No, you do not. You have a plank with blocks.
I love the story because as you're talking, I'm remembering that my days at sea, I'm a former Navy guy, right? Enlisted.
There we go.
And spent lots of time on the ocean, and I loved it. I loved, as you said, the awesome power of the ocean and of nature, and it makes itself clear to you, and it doesn't really care if you get it or not. You will get it, Yeah,
you get it the easy way or the hard way, but
you're going to get it.
That's really a great and important principle, I think, is that there are two camps in society. One of the camps thinks that it's all about self-reliance. It's like the cult of the individual. Mm-hmm. And the other camp thinks that it's entirely about community and it's entirely about, nature and whatever. And I'm thinking, I really can't embrace either of those. I think it's both of these things, because if I am not a skilled sailor, the fact that nature doesn't care about me isn't going to save me, right? Yeah. I can't just go out on the ocean and be an idiot. Mm-hmm. I need to be smart, but I also have to realize that I can't be smart enough and strong enough to neutralize nature. That's not going to happen. And so there's both of these things together. I want to be self-reliant. I want to be capable, but I also want to recognize that from time to time, I need other people. I've been saved by total strangers. It's like that Blanche Dubois quote, I've always relied on the kindness of strangers. Mm-hmm. that's my life, right?
Mhm,
I mean,
mhm.
I've shipwrecked and needed to be saved by people. I've had the boat wouldn't start and needed to be saved by people. And I mean, I've had people that I've run into that needed me. They asked for something from me. I helped them. And then
Sure.
2 days later, they came back and changed my life in a way I
Yeah.
couldn't even possibly imagine.
Tell me a story about that.
Oh, unbelievable! So these two crew had sailed. I was in the South Pacific backpacking, and these two crew had sailed over for about a month to get to this island that I was on, and I was recovering from a mountain climbing experience at a hotel, and these two crew came in, and they needed a shower. Was what they needed, and they asked, "Is there a public shower?" I'm like, "I don't know, but here's the key to my room. You guys go take a shower."
Mhm.
So they go and they take a shower, and they come back, and the next day, their whole ship invited me to go to dinner. And they're like, "I can't believe that you did this." And the captain was this snarky old dude, right? He was this just rotten guy. And he says, "So if it had been me instead of those beautiful women, would you have let me use your shower?" And I said, "Well, the real question is, would you have asked?" And he admitted that he wouldn't, right? Because we're taught to be big and strong, and I don't need anybody else. So what happens then is that at dinner, they're telling me these stories about this amazing sailing that they've done and all their experiences. And that is what inspired me to go buy a boat 1 year later and take off to the Caribbean, which really expanded my life. So and all that came from these two people who needed a little help. They needed help from me, and they inspired my life.
And so I want to talk about beauty, what beauty means to you. How do you describe beauty? How do you see it? How do you know it? How do you feel it? And how do you share it in the world or experience it in the world?
Well, I'll tell you one that everybody can relate to, and then I'll tell you a specific example that is from my own experience. When you watch Roger Federer play tennis, doesn't it make like the little hairs stand up on the back of your neck a little bit? Or when you see Simone Biles just crush some vault, right? It makes like your eyes water a little bit and your hair stand up on the back of your neck. We're wired. We are wired to respond that way, to perceive a glimpse of the divine, a glimpse of perfection. Like we see something that's so perfect and so true, and it makes the hair stand up on the back of our neck, or gives us butterflies, or makes us want to be like that. And it could be a beautiful man. It could be a beautiful woman. It could be an incredible feat. It could be grace that someone extends to a child. Any of these things, and it just, the blood rushes up, and we recognize that right there, that moment is divine. And that feeling, that's what I would call beauty. And that's what I would call a love response. It's, I see something divine and I'm so drawn to that. I want to replicate that. I view that as the standard. And so in my life, I have it every day. My wife is this absolutely astounding person. She's a French national. And when one of the times I told her I love her, she said, in French, we don't tell each other je t'aime all the time, which je t'aime is I love you. And I said, well, interesting. Well, what could I tell her other than I love her? Well, how about why I love her? And then you start thinking, well, why do I love her? And you start to realize, oh my God, I love her because of all of these little things she does. Like she remembers everything that matters to people who matter to her. I mean, everything. It's crazy. She'll say to me, hey, don't you have that interview with Al today? Which I might have told her something about like weeks ago. Like, yeah, I do. What do you know? Or the things that you give her, it's just amazing. Or the fact that she knows exactly when you need her to, she's a pastry chef. So she'll say, oh, I baked you these madeleines. I thought you might need them. She's just so tuned in. She names every animal she sees in the wild. That deer over there, that turtle over there, that tree. She'll just stare at a tree for an hour and tell me, that is just the most beautiful tree that I have ever seen. Like her eyes, she has the eyes of a child. Everything is magic. So anyway, that's when I say beauty, that's what I mean. I mean that thing that makes the hair stand up on the back of your neck and tells you, you know what, there's something transcendent at work here, and I need to be more like that.
So let's talk to wrap up here. I'm enjoying the conversation. I'm smiling. You see me smiling, but I'm smiling inside in ways that might or might not be visible. But I'm telling you that this conversation brings a smile to all of me. Let's talk about perspective then.
Yeah.
We've talked about beauty. We've talked about, what was the first thing we talked about?
Heroes.
Balance. We talk about balance, beauty, now perspective. How does that come into play?
Well,
so you know what? Talk about that in describing your 6 years in the Caribbean, because I want to hear about that. Give me some stories. Weave some stories about the people that you met and who helped change you and make you in the Caribbean.
So when I was in Grenada, we had a really big catastrophe on the boat, and it ended up we had to be in Grenada for a long time to get it fixed because a lot of the parts had to be custom made and shipped in. So during that time, I met this Rasta man. His name is Thaddeus. And Thaddeus has become like, he's my soulmate. I love that man. The conversations that we had were just incredible, inspiring, deep. He's nothing like who I am. And yet he feels like he's my long lost brother. These conversations we're having about the meaning of life and priorities and family and human nature and relationships. And of course, we've read different things and we've lived different things, and yet we see this truth in each other's life. And it was just like an iron sharpening iron for months and months. And I miss those conversations very, very much. But they all started with this guy who we have this saying that in the Caribbean, there are only 3 times, past, present, and future. So if somebody says, hey, I will bring you this bread at 3 p.m., well, that means they didn't do it already. They are not presently doing it, and they will do it at some point in the future, but not necessarily at 3 p.m. Well, Thaddeus did not agree to that at all. He was at my boat every day at 8 a.m. He worked a full day every single day. He was a master woodworker. This guy was unbelievably skilled and disciplined. He brought his lunch to work every day so that he didn't have to spend more of his money that he could take for his family. He rode the community bus every day. And this is a guy who, because of his discipline, because of his persistence and the honor of his word and the skill of his hands, he earned about 5 times as much as a typical person in Grenada. But you wouldn't know it. It was just like this. He was just a Rasta dude with this huge cat in the hat, sack, and it was just awesome. He's just an amazing, amazing guy and blessed me so much. So yeah, there are people like that you meet and you just think, wow, I met a guy named Elliot in the Bahamas, and this guy went from an orphan to he's started his own auto rental business. He's got multiple jobs. Everybody knows him. Everybody likes him. He's like worked his way up through 100 jobs to get himself to where he is. And you ask him like, what mattered? What mattered to you? And he said, what mattered was that when I give somebody my word, that is what is going to happen no matter what it costs me. And I saw that. Like there were times when he said, you leave your rental car at the airport and we'll pick it up. And this one time, all of his workers were out, couldn't happen. And he said, well, I can't pick up the car at the airport, but just I'll drive you to the airport. So this is the owner. He's driving me to the airport because he doesn't want to break his word to me. And it's just this idea that there is no respect on credit and reputation is the most important thing. And boy, he really taught me that in spades. So there were just, and there's a long list, but there's 2 guys that, will be part of my story forever.
So the summation in talking about perspective, what is the lesson? What's the learning about
Yeah.
perspective?
Yeah. So the lesson for me is that there's more than one way to skin whatever cat it is that you're looking at, right? So whatever job it is, you absolutely positively do not see all the ways to do that thing. There's 100 different ways to do that. So that's kind of point number one. And the other point, I think, is a bigger picture of perspective. And that bigger picture is to say that if you zoom out on life and you look at, we are life and organization and harmony and this tiny little corner of the universe, and we are surrounded by chaos, void, death, destruction. It's everywhere. And we're on this tiny little speck in the middle of all that chaos. We already won the lottery ticket, the galactic lottery ticket, that we're here, that we get to relate to each other, right? And that sense of perspective, instead of saying, oh my God, I really need to create this new business, or I really need to get this degree, or I really need to forge this family, and if I don't do that, we're not going to have, like, no. Already won the lottery. Everything is gravy. Every single thing is gravy from here on out. It's amazing. It'll completely change your life, give you a ton of energy to do all these amazing little things.
So let me put the difficult question to you, Scott, and that is, how do we, number one, reflect awareness like that in a social structure, which is rigged to exploit not only material resources, not only and human resources, and to devalue our humanity? How do we, number one, either both resist it, rise above it, or ultimately change it? Because the mission has to be to figure out how to disabuse humanity of the idea that it's okay to be murderous, and to be exploitative, and to be insensitive, and to be a usurper of nature itself, and to be at war with nature, as opposed to balanced and reflective of the beauty of existence itself.
I think this is the fundamental question. This is the question of the meaning of life, Al. Like, you just basically threw me this nice big softball. So I'll just tell you that. So there's this famous French philosopher, Jean-Paul Sartre, and he said, hell is other people. And I think he's dead wrong. Dead, but he's also wrong. And hell is not other people. Hell is entropy. Hell is chaos. And what we're trying to do here is we're just trying to say, look, I need to create a little more order, a little more harmony, a little more beauty, a little more help, a little more inspiration. That's what I need to do. And if I can do that, you think about this world of the universe of chaos. Everything's chaos. The anomaly is, hey, wait a minute. Here's Al and Scott having a conversation, and it doesn't sound like chaos. Mm-hmm. This is an evidence of life. This right here, this moment is an evidence of life, right? And if you remember a little bit of this, I'm going to remember some of this, and I'm going to carry that on to somebody else. Well, guess what? When I do that, I'm taking a little bit of your spiritual DNA and I'm passing it over to somebody else, right? So a little bit of you is surviving way beyond you.
That's right.
Somewhere that you don't even know. And a little bit of me is surviving, a little bit more over there. So when we think about significance and meaning, it all comes down to this. Entropy has an eraser, and it's going to erase any evidence that you existed, right? The trick, meaning of life, the trick to the meaning of life is making it really hard for entropy to erase you. And the way you do that is you do that by influencing lots of people, because then there's effects of you all over the place. That eraser can't get to them. And so it doesn't have to be like, okay, I'm going to go invent something, or I'm going to run for president. I'm telling you, return your shopping cart. Hold the door open for the lady who's got a bag of groceries in her hand and a little kid she's trying to corral. It's 100 little things a day, the good things. Remember, I was talking about my dad, and he's the greatest man I've ever known because he just consistently did good things, right? Think about all those little good things that we can do, right? Let somebody merge in front of you on the road. Don't honk back when somebody honks at you. It's the 100 little things. So anyway, that was my experience. Living in really simple countries allowed me to see that, you know what, it's the simple little 100 things a day that ultimately will compound and make a bigger difference.
So my friend Mike V in the comment section says, ask Scott to speak on the term of social dominance theory and its application in a colonized society like United States. What do you think?
Well, I'm not a sociologist or a historian, but I can probably put two and two together and say, look, the nature of humanity for all time has been to use power over each other. And in some cases, that's been within race, and in some cases it's been across race. In some cases it's been across gender, and it is just the nature of who we are, it seems, to try to dominate other people. And I think that the aspect of us that makes us most vulnerable to that is fear. Like, fear turns us into monsters. Like, I think that I need to dominate you because I'm afraid that if I don't dominate you, that you're going to dominate me, or that, you're going to take something from me or whatever. And I just think that fear is a terribly, terribly nasty thing. And the unfortunate thing about the US is that our entire economic system is driven by fear. Like, if you go talk to the people on Madison Avenue, they talk about something called FUD, fear, uncertainty, and doubt. And what they're talking about doing is essentially trying to make you scared so that you will then buy the antidote for the fear from the person who made you scared. It's a total scam, right? And so I think that, there's a long history going back, I would say 100,000 years, of human beings dominating each other, hurting each other, taking from each other, exploiting each other. And I don't mean to minimize the very specific and real and unique aspect of America's, experience in that. But I do want to cast a broader lens and say, this is a big problem. It's a bigger problem than here. It's a bigger problem than now. And in my opinion, the only way that we can overcome it is going forward, banish fear and realize that diversity, and not just of skin color or of socioeconomic status or philosophy, but all diversity of perspective, diversity of solutions. It is our species' superpower.
Scott, that's it for right now, man. Good conversation. I've enjoyed this. Thank you so much. Where can people get the book?
You can get it on Amazon. You can get it at Barnes & Noble.
Okay, cool. We'll do this again. Thank you, man.
I love that. Take it easy.
Take care. I'm Al McFarlane. This is The Conversation with Al McFarlane. What a wonderful interview. And I'm sure we'll get back together again in the future. I enjoy conversations like this. I enjoy the exploration. And, we talked before the show about letting this thing flow wherever it will flow. I think we got a lot done in a short period of time, but there's so much more to do. And I think I'm going to enjoy hanging out with Scott again in the future and going deep, answering questions, challenging each other, challenging the norm, the status quo, and in the process, reflecting, revealing what he feels and what I feel are strategies for us to become our best selves as human beings that we can possibly be. Well, let me pivot with that and bring in another human being par excellence, and that is Coach Leah Jean. Coach Leah, good to see you, my friend. How you doing?
I am pretty fantabulous for this month.
There we go. Fantabulous. Wonderful.
Yes.
So what's on your mind? What you work with? You got some awards, I think, or some recognition, first of all.
Yes. So I want to do some shout outs and actually some shameless plugs.
Okay.
So
go for it.
Wheeler Avenue Baptist Church. Many of you know that I work part-time at my church as a member of our production team, and Vacation Bible School begins today. And it's available for all ages. So I always enjoyed, we've been a member since 2009, my children and myself, and now my husband. And we would go as a family. And of course, you always enjoy the fact that your children can go to Vacation Bible School. And sometimes you remember as the child going. But what's been really cool about what we do at Wheeler is that it's for all ages and everybody has just an amazing time. So, and it's not that you have to hang out with your kids, because all the kids go one place, the adults go another place. They always have really yummy food at the beginning. Food is always great at church, right?
Yep. Yep.
So registration is still available. On-site registration is available for our Wheeler Wherever members. Opportunities to attend will be available as well. So go to www.wheelerbc.org and check on events, and you will be able to find where you may be able to attend Vacation Bible School this week. All right. Another little short shameless plug. The WNBA All-Star Game is this Saturday in Las Vegas. And myself and our photographer, Brian Spann, will be there to provide our insight news and Coach Leah's After the Whistle audience's up close and behind the scenes coverage of this weekend's festivities. So be sure to check us out in our upcoming episodes of After the Whistle, and go to Insight News to see what we were able to, report back to all of our audience. And so we're excited about that. The WNBA All-Star Weekend is a lot of fun. The NBRPA, which stands for National Basketball Retired Players Association, will be there hosting some really cool events during All-Star games. So I want to give a shout out to them as well. And we're just looking forward to having the stars of the WNBA show up and show out this weekend. So that's going to be fun. And we're going to have a great time covering that. So now, to what you alluded to, Al, our Coach Leah's After the Whistle is featured in the One Black Podcast a Day newsletter. I'm so excited about this. This is so awesome. And we're new at this. We're just getting out the gate, and to already be featured and with this newsletter promoting Black podcasters. And so we do realize that our program, our project is threefold: a journalist trifecta, where it's live streamed, then goes to podcast on demand, and then to print. We're still just super excited that this One Black Podcast a Day would acknowledge us. And so, oh my God, how exciting is that?
That's awesome. Congratulations.
Thank you. So we want you to definitely read more about these topics that our shameless plug in our upcoming edition of Insight News. And also be sure to tune in to Coach Leah's After the Whistle live Tuesdays at 4 p.m. Central Standard Time on all of our live platforms: Facebook, YouTube, LinkedIn, Twitter. Podcasters, we're on Amazon, Apple, and Spotify. In print, which is probably my favorite, actually. I really, really enjoy writing our Insight News newspapers. You can also go to www.insightnews.com, and you can also find us on any of our e-editions. So if you just have to read, which is for a lot of us, it's just a lot of fun to just relax and read. You'll be able to, get all the scoops of what we're doing in all the places we are everywhere.
Well, we had a video pop in there. Tell me about what that video was that we were looking at.
So can we look at that one more time, and then
bring it back up?
Bring it back up for us.
Yeah.
That would be really awesome.
Yeah, it was in the background or in the back room. Maybe Ben can bring it back up again. But just
okay.
There we go. What is that? What's going on?
So what is going on here? Oh, this is one of our After the Whistle, our latest After the Whistle, and this is that we call community collaborators. And that gentleman is Daniel Watkins. He's the regional director for Court Furniture, who happens to be one of the Fraser Foundation's community partners. As a national retailer, they help to provide furniture for families in need. And one of their major thrusts as an organization nationally is to help eradicate homelessness. And so they partner with many larger nonprofits as well as small nonprofits to help provide furnishings, housing, with to help eradicate homelessness. And so, yeah, we had a chance to understand. Yeah, and he's got a pretty terrific story as a former athlete. And so we'll have him as a featured guest in an upcoming episode of After Coach Leah's After the Whistle. So, yeah, pretty cool.
So, any big sports stories since in the past week or so? What have you watched and been thinking about in terms of sports news?
Well, I would say this: the USA women's basketball team has been having a challenge with Brazil here lately. And so in the AmeriCup series that's being played right now in Mexico, they're really being challenged. They've already been beat by them once, and I believe they may have actually lost to them a second time. I haven't had a chance to look up the finals for that, but we've all heard the name Angel Reese, who plays on this team, and she had a not even a breakout game, and it's a really great game against Canada here recently. But I think that she had a real struggle with Brazil. So what they're saying is that the USA has definitely got the most talented team, bar none. I mean, the best talent in the world. The question is always, when we pull all these best players together, how well will the chemistry work in order for them to win a championship together as they're playing? And so on the men's side, it's always been a challenge as well. So what comes to bear in this is many of the other international teams, the nucleus of those teams stay together all year round. Whereas in the United States, they go to play for their various either college or pro teams. They rarely, if ever, spend a year together. And so it means a lot when you're thinking about how well will the chemistry work? How well do I know and trust you as another player? And trust is not as important, because obviously if you've dedicated yourself to play for Team USA, you're gonna trust your teammate. But then can you still, again, just play together? And that is always the key. Do the coaches know how to make sure that they utilize the strengths of each one of those it's just fabulous players, so that they can win, and because again, like a team like Brazil, those girls play together year round.
Yeah.
And so they're able to just kind of know what each other's going to do with their eyes closed sometimes.
It's intuitive at that point, Yeah.
Correct. So that's a challenge. But what I do want to mention is one of our special guests for Coach Leah's After the Whistle tomorrow is a high school All-American in 2016 Final Four starting guard from Syracuse University. Taylor Ford is one of our featured guests. And so we're going to have a chance to learn about her experiences in the Final Four. 2016, they came up short, made it to the semifinal game, but came up short against Connecticut that year. But that team and talking about chemistry, how they came together and basically shocked the world by just having an outstanding season and then making it all the way to the title game in 2016. And so we'll have a chance to talk to her. But and more importantly, what she's up to now. We're talking 8 years later. What are you doing now? What are things that inspire her now as a former collegiate athlete? And so we'll get to talk to her about that. And then we also have a little closer to home, again, because I'm your homegirl, Coach Leah, and we have the dynamic and inspirational Twin Cities native Dr. Roll that will be joining us today, Reverend Dr. Rolanda Smith. And so she's like, when our kids grow up, are we still their mom? But yeah, so her grown children, but all of them played athletics. And so she was that sports mom like I was back in the day. And, we keep we we really embraced those times. We were chasing our kids all around the country
Yep.
when they were playing sports. But be able to talk to her about how that balance worked for her family, and the things that she's up to now as well. So be sure to subscribe to the Insight News YouTube channel. So when you're not able to join us live, you can catch us on demand anytime at the Insight News YouTube channel. We're really trying to grow our subscribers there, folks. So again, the more we grow, the more we'll be able to share amazing content. And so we are definitely counting on you. I'm going to keep saying this.
Yeah, no, we have to. We have to. A quick question.
Yes.
I was noticing in the past 2 weeks stories about Simone Biles return to competition. Any thoughts on that? She's heroic. I mean, she was just, our previous guest talked about defining what beauty is. Beauty is watching her execute, right? So all you can say about that is that it's absolutely phenomenally beautiful. And so what does it mean that she's returning and her courage to deal with in a public way the need to protect your health?
No doubt. She's been such a great spokesperson for understanding
self-care.
Self-care, but I would say more importantly, self-awareness. Because you have to be aware before you can even get to the care.
Yeah.
Oh, look at me rhyming. But that's one thing I've always admired about her is her self-awareness has just been so spot on. And then her bravery for being able to speak about that. And make no apologies for, listen, this is how I feel right now. These are the things that are going on. I'm articulating that to you. And then guess what? I'm also going to go sit down. As well as now that I understand where I am emotionally, physically, and mentally, I'm going to now start competing again. And so I think that that's really, really important that you're able to just be your true self and articulate it in a way that even if people don't like it, they can at least understand it. And it also helps for other athletes, especially elite athletes, to not feel so haunted by the fact that there might be something going on and now I can't compete. So what are people gonna say and think about me, and so on and so forth. I also want to congratulate her on her new marriage. She's a newlywed, and there's been a lot in the headlines regarding that. And so congratulations to her and for that. But I think that, again, being self-aware so that you can utilize self-care is where we all need to go with this. So,
well, before we go, your last invitation to your next show, invite people again.
Yes. So our show tomorrow live streams at 4 p.m. Central Standard Time on the Insight News as well as the Black Press USA channels. And so you can check us out there. You can also check us out live on Facebook. You can check us out live on LinkedIn and Twitter live, guys. That's so much fun. So if you want to be able to hop in, ask some questions, and then we can talk about those questions right live on air, that's how you'll get a chance to do that. But if you don't have a chance to join us live, you can always join us on demand on those platforms as well as on podcasts, Amazon, Apple, and Spotify. And we would love for you to subscribe, like us, follow us, all of those things. Share this show, share those shows. We're happy that the Black podcasters found us, but we need more people to find us. And
there we go. We're out of time. Listen, thanks. It's always a delight, Coach Leah. Well, before I go, I want to remind people that the Health Department, Minnesota Department of Health, is hosting a COVID vaccination event at Amherst H. Wilder, which is at 451 Lexington Parkway North in St. Paul. It's going to be this Saturday, July 15th from 10 o'clock to 4 o'clock. It's a free event, open to the public, and the Department of Health encourages everyone in the community to get vaccinated against COVID. Make sure you're protected. I'm Al McFarlane. We'll see you next time. Take care. Bye-bye, Coach Lee.